Did you ask the Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden?
No, actually, I didn't. I asked the Ukraine to investigate the allegations that there was interference in the election of 2016 by the Ukrainians for the benefit of Hillary Clinton, for which there already is a court finding.
You never asked anything about Hunter Biden. You never asked anything about Joe Biden.
The only thing I asked about Joe Biden is to get to the bottom of how it was that Lutsenko, who was appointed, dismissed the case against Antak.
So you did ask Ukraine to look into Joe Biden?
Of course I did.
You just said you didn't.
No, I didn't ask him to look into Joe Biden. I asked him to look into the allegations that related to my client, which tangentially involved Joe Biden in a massive bribery scheme,
Rudy,
not unlike what he did in China.
Rudy,
you explained to me how the kid got $1.5 billion
Rudy,
from China.
I have no problem with you launching
allegations.
allegations, but just be careful about what you say. I asked you, did you ask Ukraine to look at Joe Biden? You said no. Then you went on to say that you did.
No, I didn't say
recorded.
That. What I said was this. I asked them to investigate the allegations that relate to the false charges against the President of the United States. Those allegations tangentially involve Biden.
So your answer should have been
yes. Let me finish, Chris. And you want to cover some ridiculous charge that I urged the Ukrainian government to investigate corruption. Well, I did, and I'm proud of it.
Well, then it's not a ridiculous allegation. You just admitted it.
It's a ridiculous allegation.
You just admitted it.
It's a ridiculous allegation.
Rudy,
of course,
you just admitted that you did it.
Of course I should.
I'm not saying it was wrong for you to do it. I'm asking you if you asked them, and now you're finally saying yes.
And I am glad that
did the president ask the president of Ukraine to do the same thing?
I knew this a year ago. The only way this would come out is if you come after me. Well,
I'm
fine.
not coming after you. I'm
me.
asking you questions, okay? And I'm
asking
you
your questions, and you don't like the answers.
Now, see, right at the end, the part we cut off was when Kevin Bacon walked into the back of the studio and read Colonel Jessup his rights. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Did you order the code red?
I did, and I'm damn proud of it.
Damn right I did.
Oh, damn right I did.
So, no, but Rudy, he said, yes, I did. And I'm proud of it.
Okay, we're backing into everything this week.
We're not really backing into anything. Explain.
Well, I think you should do the news.
I think it might help to lay it out, because this all relates to the whistleblower complaints that the Trump administration is trying to keep secret from Congress. You heard about this yesterday. Two people familiar with the matter tell the Washington Post that it centers on Ukraine. NBC News has not confirmed that Ukraine is at the center of the issue. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The Post, citing two former U.S. officials, previously reported that the complaint was made by a U.S. intelligence official who was alarmed by a promise that the president made to a foreign leader in a phone conversation. Trump spoke with the new president of Ukraine on July 25th. The whistleblower complaint was filed less than 3 weeks later. Ukraine is significant because of reporting that the president was withholding military aid to the country, while at the same time Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, was pushing for the Ukrainian government to investigate Democratic presidential frontrunner Joe Biden and his son Hunter. The confluence of these two stories has the House investigating if the Trump administration withheld the aid to assist the president's re-election effort. It also led the Washington Post editorial board to accuse the president of trying to force Ukraine to meddle in the 2020 election on his behalf. The Trump administration eventually did release that $250 million military assistance package to Ukraine last week, but provided no explanation for the delay. And I know people who have done work in Ukraine in the foreign policy community who said, look into phone calls. There's something, and this was this summer, look into phone calls that were made between either Giuliani or somebody in the administration and Ukraine.
Well, and we were specifically...
And Hunter Biden as the issue.
Specifically warned, Elise, this summer, I think it was the end of July, beginning of August, said they're talking about holding up foreign aid, military aid to Ukraine until the Ukrainians agree to move forward with the investigation. And I said, hold on. I've been through too much of the conspiracy stuff over my past 25 years.
Crazy.
I said, let me get this straight. You're saying that right as Russia and Ukraine are beginning to negotiate and Ukraine needs the military hardware, that Trump's administration saying they're not going to sell it to them until they dig up dirt on Joe Biden? Are you? This was in early August. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no, check it out. It's happening. And sure enough, it's been slowly but surely coming out since then. And last night, Colonel Jessup, also known as Rudy Giuliani, admitted it. And he said, I did, and I'm proud of it. Which is, by the way, this is what they do. They come on the air. They've been doing this for 3 years. They say something so outrageous that would get anybody thrown out of office in years past. And then all of their little chihuahuas run around yapping, going, what's the big deal? That's what they do. I wonder if Republicans from my former party will say this is not a big deal, too, because this is not only impeachable, it's not only wrong, it could well be a crime. And if it's not a crime, I don't know what the hell is.
I don't know what is an impeachable offense. If this is not.
Right.
Like, basically, there's not anything that can get you impeached if the Democrats do not act on this. And I don't want ever again Lindsey Graham to lecture me about how if I don't want to send X number of troops to start a new land war, I'm not tough on on national security, if this is what Republicans are willing to tolerate these days. Looking at the timeline of this, it's very odd that this phone call with the Prime Minister of Ukraine happened the day after Mueller testified. So you almost have to wonder if President Trump thought, got away with it once, no consequences first go round, let's gear up for 2020. Let's see what we can do. It is just simply astounding to watch drunk grandpa last night who needs to be just pulled off to hospice. If not at home.
Wow.
What the?
By the way, this end of the table is rocking.
Can you hold on 1 second? Can you hold on 1 second? I speak for the gentleman from the Upper West Side and the Upper East Side. Say I disassociate myself, and they do as well from the comments of our colleagues. Regular order, sir.
I was right there at the end asking the question, but
yeah, right. Mika, you talked about the bridge off in the distance and Mika going across it. This one just burned it down.
It just
torched the thing.
Jumped in the river.
Wow, that was incredible.
I'm just saying what everyone saw.
I'm going to be the restrained one today.
I mean, this is an extraordinary. This story, I think, is an extraordinary thing that's just unfolding in front of us, right? And we don't know yet whether this is Ukraine, and we don't yet know whether it involves Joe Biden. You know, your friend and ours, Joyce Vance, last night, this escalated to the point very quickly where serious people like Joyce Vance were writing last night, tweeted last night. If it turns out to be what the whistleblower complaint is about, and it's accurate, meaning that it's Ukraine and related to Biden, Trump must leave office immediately. A president can't offer U.S. aid to a foreign country in exchange for prosecution of a political opponent. Heaven help us if we can't all agree on that.
I mean, come on.
And I think, Elisa's point is right. I mean, we're going to get, this is going to create, we've all been watching Democrats try to figure out how to handle the politics of impeachment.
Right.
If this ends up being what it apparently is, this could have that effect where it becomes now impossible for Democrats in the House to avoid a serious, out in the open, no messing around impeachment, not just an impeachment inquiry, but impeachment proceedings immediately, because on top of the actual allegations, just think about the way they're handling this whistleblower complaint. They are essentially saying that whistleblowers in the government, if they follow proper procedures, have no expectation of protection, and that the president should be allowed to engage in corrupt activities at will, with no oversight whatsoever, and anyone who seeks to have the normal oversight functions of the government will be open to retribution. On a million levels, this is problematic.
And so Ken Delanian, you actually have the IG, the Inspector General, the man who's supposed to be the independent voice for the intel community, holding a position that, of course, Republicans are now celebrating as it pertains to Justice Department IG decisions. But you have the IG trying to get the information to Congress because it is urgent. He says it is urgent, that it met that legal standard. and you have Barr's, Attorney General Barr's Department of Justice actively trying to stonewall that and to keep it from oversight committees that have a legal right to look at this information based on statutes.
That Inspector General, Joe, Michael Atkinson, is emerging as the hero of this whole saga. He is a Trump appointee, let's remember, confirmed by the Senate. He happens to be a career Justice Department official. He won an award for prosecuting a $20 million bribery scheme in 2012. And he reviewed this complaint, this whistleblower complaint, and endorsed the idea that it met the definition, as you said, of urgent concern. And that's rare. As I understand it, there have been few, if any, of those in recent memory. And what that means is that it had to involve waste, fraud, or abuse connected to an intelligence activity. And that's what's important here because, you know, obviously, as John said, we don't know if this is Ukraine. The reporting seems solid. NBC News has not confirmed that it's the July 25th Ukraine call. But if it was, and the allegation about that call is that Donald Trump made an inappropriate proposal for an arrangement, that still doesn't cover an intelligence activity, as I understand it. So what some experts are telling me is there must be something else here. So if there was a promise, it would have had to involve some kind of intelligence activity of the United States in order for an intelligence official to file this whistleblower complaint and then this Inspector General to have endorsed it and said, yes, I believe it's an urgent concern. It must go to the Congressional Intelligence Committees. And then what happened after that was the DNI, Joe Maguire, who himself is a stand-up guy, a former Navy SEAL, a retired admiral, praised on both sides of the aisle. Can you imagine what he must have thought? He knows what the complaint's about, one of the very few people. He's seen the whole thing. He knows it involves Trump. What does he do? He consults the Justice Department. He feels like he can't make this decision alone to just hand this to Congress. People have criticized him for that, but I feel like I understand him making that decision. And then the DOJ weighs in and says, absolutely not. You can't turn this over. And the OLC, the Office of Legal Counsel, issues this opinion. Now, serious people have argued, including Jack Goldsmith, the Harvard scholar who was a national security lawyer in the Bush administration, that this is a reasonable argument, that the foreign relations of the United States, the conversations between a president and a foreign leader, are solely the purview of the executive branch, that Congress, and particularly the intelligence committees, have no business knowing what was said in that conversation. But reasonable people looking at this are saying, if it was as inappropriate as it seems to have been, if there was some smarmy deal that Trump was offering, how could Congress not have an oversight role? There's got to be a way. Even if it doesn't fall under this narrow intelligence whistleblower protection statute, there must be a way for Congress to conduct oversight of this behavior.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's interesting. Dan Coates, Willie, stepped down a few days after this call.
That timing is fascinating.
And to follow up on what Ken's saying, where it has to be more than just that phone call, we actually, again, we heard about this call, about the quid pro quo, about the offer. We'll give you military support and supplies to defend yourself against Russian aggression in return for you giving us dirt that we can use in campaign. The Washington Post editorialized about it already before this whistleblower complaint became public. Financial Times reported on this last week as well. So that information has been out. I've got to believe most people on Capitol Hill have heard about this already. So there may be even more than I think what is clearly an extraordinarily inappropriate and dangerous act.
Yeah, I mean, urgent concern. That is not a term that is thrown around lightly, as Ken can tell you in the intelligence community. Actually, it's a legal threshold where Congress has to investigate. So they don't take this lightly. Clearly, by going to the Justice Department, the intelligence officer displayed that they don't take it lightly. This was a big deal, whatever this officer heard. But to cut through what we're talking about here, Joe Biden is the candidate that Donald Trump fears most, right, Donnie? So Rudy Giuliani has been in the Ukraine for the last couple of months fishing around for dirt on Joe Biden and his son, Hunter Biden. And so now you have the very real possibility that the President of the United States, on a phone call with the President of Ukraine, said, we're going to withhold some money from you on the condition that we will give it back if you keep looking into this guy who I fear defeating me in the next election.
You know, guys, it does feel like a moment in time. We've sat on this set after so many Trump snafus and, you know, oh, this is it. This is a game changer. And if the Democrats can't smell this,
I've
been one all along saying step away from impeachment, because when it's a process thing, when it's campaign finance, this is the big one. If this is the case, this is the Super Bowl, and the Democrats need to pounce aggressively.
So the questions are so important. I don't think there's any way the truth is going to stay hidden, number one. And you wonder if Republicans might start responding to this story in a little bit of a different way.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.